It is December 10th, 2025, and Pete Alonso has just signed a 5 year, $155 million deal. Not with the Red Sox, as we all hoped for and expected, but instead with the division rival Baltimore Orioles. Now, I know I've heard everyone on Red Sox Twitter put out their views about this, and I agree that I think it puts the Red Sox in a real bind and a tricky situation with how to approach the rest of the offseason. Um, First of all, Breslow has talked all offseason long about wanting to add a power bat to the middle of the rotation, ideally a right handed one because of the Green Monster and because we don't exactly have right handed power bats right now other than Trevor Story. And Pete Alonso just felt like it would have been the perfect fit. You need a first baseman, he's a first baseman. You need a righty power bat, he's a righty power bat. Match made in heaven. To me, the fact that not only was he willing to let the Orioles outbid him, which should not be happening. The Red Sox are a franchise with more money than the Orioles. You can't be letting the Orioles, a division rival, outbid you for somebody like Pete Alonso who would have fit in so perfectly here in Boston. But the fact that the offer made wasn't even competitive. We don't know the exact details of the offer. All we know is it was for fewer years and less money. Maybe we were looking at something along the lines of 3 years, $100 million, which would have been a higher AAV, but definitely, like Bregman, Alonso is probably going to be taking the deal that gives him the greater long-term security. Although I suppose scratch that because Bregman actually did the opposite during the 2024 offseason. But right now, the Red Sox have a problem. You've lost all of your leverage, first of all. Boris knows that, so now good luck negotiating with Bregman. You're probably going to have to give him more than you would have before entering today. And the D-backs know that if you want to sign trade for Ketel Marte, you're almost certainly going to have to give up either Peyton Tolley or Connolly early. And obviously, you don't want to do that because they are far and away the two best prospects in your system, two people that have a lot of major league talent when it comes to the pitching side of things. But the Red Sox have to do something because right now, if your season were to begin today, your infield would look like this. You would probably have Romy Gonzalez at first, which is all right, but you were hoping for some improvement there. It doesn't look like Tristan Casas is going to be ready for opening day. At second base, you are probably going to have to play Nick Sogard. That is the position that you would be in right now. You do not have a second baseman. At shortstop, of course, you'd have Trevor Story. And then at third, I could very easily see you doing a platoon between Nate Eden and between Marcelo Meyer. And I don't mean to diss Nick Sogard or Nate Eden because I think that they were both, very helpful assets for the Red Sox down the stretch in 2025. But it's very clearly a team that has gotten worse if both of them are cracking the opening day roster because you failed to make moves that it was very clear what you needed to do. And so do I think that the Red Sox lineup is going to look like that? Of course not. There's still plenty of time. I do think it's still likely that we see a reunion with Bregman, that he will be back here for next year. And I can see us signing somebody like Okamoto from Japan to play first base. And those moves would be fine and all, but of course, nothing is going to fit as well as Alonso would have into our lineup. And for me, the most infuriating thing is we trace this all the way back to the Rafi trade back in June. The idea that if we weren't going to spend the money that we offloaded from the Rafi trade at the trade deadline, we were going to make some big moves during the offseason. The idea that essentially Pete Alonso would be a replacement, albeit I would argue not quite entirely adequate replacement for Rafi Devers. But now you've essentially done nothing. All that you've done is offloaded salary, which is something that the third richest baseball team should not be focusing on. John Henry should not be worrying about how can I make it cheaper to maintain this team. When this team is generating tons of revenue, more than almost any other team in baseball, and when, you shouldn't have to worry about money as the owner of the Boston Red Sox. You shouldn't be trying to dump salary. Now it feels like we're in a position where we have, trade talks that probably aren't going to pan through. Like, I have very little hopes that anything's going to come of this Ketel Marte situation, and if it does, it is going to come at the cost of either Tolley or Early, neither of whom I want to see depart from this team. And the Corey Seager thing from the other day, absolutely nothing is going to come of that. You're just, I think, delusional if you think that you're going to acquire Corey Seager. And so the real question is, things obviously didn't work out here. I do feel like Breslow is running on thin ice. Since we have had him, what has he done right? He's absolutely butchered the 2024 trade deadline. He absolutely butchered the 2025 trade deadline. You can argue over whether, Steve Matz being a positive, acquisition. But the fact that he butchered getting a good pitcher and then had to settle for a less than adequate Dustin May. The only good thing that Breslow has done is he had a good offseason between 2024 and 2025. And even then, we can praise him as much as we'd like for trading for Garrett Crochet. That was only the backup plan after you let the Yankees sign Max Fried. And so who knows, maybe Breslow will now feel motivated to make a trade that pans out really well in the long run, just as the Crochet trade did. Yes, we had to give away Kyle Teal for that, and yes, apparently we want to trade back for Kyle Teal now. But the Red Sox that was definitely a win-win trade. But I do think the Red Sox come out on top when the one guy who we're getting just is absolutely dominant his first year in Boston and comes in second place in Cy Young voting. I don't think that that's going to happen. It doesn't look like there's anyone who we're going to have to trade without giving up a haul that we would not be happy with. You can debate, between Tolley and Early, who would you be more comfortable giving up? This is going to be a very hot take. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with me. But if we are that desperate for Ketel Marte and we really have to give up either Tolley or Early, I do think I'd actually rather see Early stay in Boston than Tolley. Not a situation I want to talk about. I understand that there's a lot of debate we could have about why I might be wrong and why I think most people would want to keep Peyton Tolley on board over Connolly Early. But the fact that you're even talking about these situations to me kind of suggests that maybe the Red Sox have already had a faulty approach to what they've wanted to accomplish during this offseason. And so, yeah, it sucks. I'm trying to get my thoughts out. I'm also very stressed right now because I have 4 final exams next week. Fun times being in college. But I just figured I should get my thoughts out, upload this online, see what people think. Note that, no, it's not the end of the world, but this team is going to have to make some decisions, maybe some decisions they're uncomfortable with, if they want to put a better product on the field in 2026 than they did this past season. But please do let me know what you think.